Live now. Okay, here we go. Now we're going live. All right. So I'm going to shorten the version I've already told you on the radio. Number one, everything is okay at Westview and Mays. I did talk about that on the radio, but everything is good over there. Then I wanted to tell you about the Hostess coffee cakes. And here I was holding this thing up. I wasn't even live on Facebook, but I am live on the radio, and I am talking. So that's 2 out of 3 ain't bad. All right, so here's the picture of the Hostess coffee cakes. As I was saying, I wanted a little treat. I hadn't had one of these probably in 15 years. So I bought a box of them, took them out of the box and looked at these things, and they are puny. This is what I have to say, puny. They are not the same size. Somebody just said, oh, don't even go there. Okay, so I took them out of the box and I look at it and it says, and it shows a picture of the streusel topping on there. I was looking forward to that. No streusel topping. I am now totally irritated by the fact that there is no streusel topping on these things. Thinking about going back to the grocery store to take them back. Well, I didn't have to because I opened it up and I tasted it, and the streusel topping is now inside the coffee cake. Does make for less mess, but still not the original. Now let me just talk about the size. These things are puny. I don't know what they've done, but they are puny. They're still putting 8 in a box, but they're puny. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. However, as a good point, they did taste good. So I did enjoy having the Hostess coffee cakes with the cinnamon strudel, even though I feel like I'm being lied to because there's no streusel topping on the top. And if you can see the box, you see there is supposed to be streusel topping inside it. Oh, well. They were delicious, and they brought back a slight memory, and I mean a slight memory because of the reduced size. Hey, I'm Ann Eller. This is WCRS Radio. I am here with you live on Facebook, live on the radio, live here with Penny. Let's check in on Penny. The only thing Penny is going, are you giving me a little treat of this or not? Because otherwise I'm not interested. All right, we have a lot to talk about here this morning. One of the things I want to say, yesterday afternoon we had what I would consider an excellent interview with Police Chief T.J. Shadone, Police Chief. It was lots of good information. If you want to know what flock cameras actually can and cannot see, listen to the interview or watch it, either one. If you want to know how long TJ and I have been talking on the radio, he said he couldn't grow facial hair when we first started talking. That was an interesting point, but now he can. So those are some of the things that we talked about. There was a lot of good information that came through that. So also, that's you can hear it right here on Facebook Live, WCRS Radio. You also will be able to probably tonight hear or listen to it on WCRS 1450am.net, and it will be posted on A Girl and Her Mic on Spotify and on iTunes. So check those out. I can't say we're on all streaming platform, but I can say we're on 2 and on our website. So great opportunity to check it out. Lots of good information, lots of good questions. Some questions about how to get the information out to the public more. We discussed that. It was a wide-ranging discussion that I think you should go back and listen to. We talked about DJ Keller and how it has affected the police department, how they are moving forward from this. So, good interview. Check it out. All right. So, is there any product, just to go back to my coffee cake story here this morning, what's one product you swear was better 20 years ago than it is today? Is there anything that you taste today and you go, it's just not the same? Just not the same. Any candy bar, any packaged little coffee cake or anything along that line that you go, God, those were so good back in the day and now they've ruined it. I think there probably are a lot of them, but I will say my coffee cake did taste as good as it did when I remembered it. So from that standpoint, I was glad. Now we got some other stuff to talk about. Jack Nicholson, actor, character, says, the only way to break a bad habit is to replace it with a better habit. Have you ever had a bad habit that you tried to replace with a better habit? See, that quote could be interpreted any of a number of ways. You could replace it with another bad habit, or you could try to gain a new one. I prefer to think I would like to make it a new one, but I don't know. Maybe I should replace it with a bad habit. Maybe I should have more treats. Maybe I should allow myself more treats. I don't know. It seems to me I work awful hard every day to try to do the right things. And for what? Anyways, bad habits, and do you have one that you would like to replace, or have you replaced a bad habit with a new, better habit? You know, I think one of the habits that a lot of people have tried, although I think a lot of people equally fail at, is replacing water as their drink of choice. So many people, doctors tell them, you need to drink more water, or people get dehydrated, so they start drinking water. I'm guilty of this. So I said, I'm going to drink water for a while. And then I like those Lipton green teas, 0 calories, and I go, oh, what the heck? It's water. Can I go back to drinking my green tea? And I go back to drinking green tea. I think a lot of people have these issues. They try, particularly at the first of the year, to break that bad habit and go with a good habit. Have you had any success with breaking a bad habit and turning it into a good habit? That's a question inquiring minds on Coffee Talk want to know. And speaking of food and treats, what about RFK Jr.'s cooking show? You have you seen they've just rolled this out. It is a new show, and I think it looks pretty interesting. But do you think a person of his stature should be out there cooking? I don't know. That is one of the things that people are asking and questioning. He's supposed to have a lot of good chefs coming on board with him. They're supposed to cook meals that are like, healthy meals for $5 or less per person, showing you that you can actually do this. What do you think of the idea of having a cooking show with a MAGA man, or Make America Healthy, Maha man, Make America Healthy? And my question is, after the fact, is he going to make you work out as you've had this meal? Or are you going to have to work out? But it is a new cooking show. It is one that they're rolling out. I think it's pretty cool that they are rolling it out and that they are trying something new. They also have brought back the food pyramid. Does everybody remember the food pyramid? And then they did away with it. Well, now the food pyramid is back in. So it hasn't been part of the guidelines since before My Plate was introduced in 2011. Do you realize that's like 15 years? We grew up with the food pyramid. Remember that? This time the visual represents an inverted pyramid with protein, dairy, healthy fats, vegetables, and fruits on top, and whole grains on the bottom. The updated guidance encourages Americans to eat more whole foods while limiting ultra-processed foods and added sugars. And they say that that's a good thing. However, critics on the other side say the guidelines put greater emphasis on red meat, full-fat dairy, and higher protein intake, departs from decades of nutritional research that was not supported by the Independent Scientific Advisory Committee's recommendations. So it's always the same, isn't it? What's old is new. What's new could become old. So, but anyways, I think this is going to be interesting to see what he cooks. What he cooks up, what type of things. It's called The Real Food Show, and it reminds Americans that healthy eating starts at home and that cooking with real food can be simple, affordable, and within reach for every family. By bringing people back to the kitchen table, we can strengthen our families, improve our health, build healthy habits that last for generations to come, and, of course, make American healthy again. That's RFK saying that. So it's an interesting concept. It's an interesting concept that the U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy, is the host of a brand new cooking show. You just never know what's going to happen to you out there. Pretty. I think it's pretty interesting. All right, so that's the cooking show. We've got food out there. Then we have the question of the day that Ann asked, and I'm going to let it just kind of mull around with you here this morning. But I asked it on Facebook this morning, and just curious what you would be thinking about this question. Yesterday I introduced it. We talked about it. We've got some responses, but I'm going to let a little time go, and then we're going to come back at the end of the show and talk about it. Somebody I called WCRS and said we need a new internet. So here's my question. If you could redesign the internet from scratch, what would you change? What would you keep? What would you get rid of? And we've had several comments this morning in the on our Facebook page post. That's on my page, Ann Eller. Love for you to comment right there on our Facebook Live page. But at the end of the show, or near the end of the show, we'll see what other comments have come in. But if you could change the internet, if you could reconnect it, what would you change about it? Maybe you wouldn't change anything about it. Maybe you'd have some what you consider improvements. You know, Al Gore is the one that flipped the switch on this thing, and it's been the wild, wild west ever since. And in a lot of ways, is the internet helping life or not helping life? That is the question. We talked about no longer needing a set of encyclopedias. We've talked about a lot of different aspects, but there's also a lot of other side that goes with it. So let me know. 864-332-9355. 864-332-9355. We are going to take a quick break, and we will be right back. So don't you go away. This is WCRS Radio. Take it away. An American 250 revolutionary moment. As America celebrates its 250th birthday, let's meet four South Carolinians who helped change the course of history. They were Thomas Hayward Jr., Thomas Lynch Jr., Arthur Middleton, and Edward Rutledge. They were among the 56 men who signed the Declaration of Independence, pledging their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor for American liberty. But signing the Declaration wasn't simply adding their names to a document. It was an act of treason against the British Crown, a decision that could cost them everything. Yet they stood with their fellow delegates and boldly declared that the American colonies were and of right ought to be free and independent states. The story begins on June 7, 1776, when Virginia delegate Richard Henry Lee introduced what became known as the Lee Resolution before the Second Continental Congress. It called for the colonies to break their allegiance to Great Britain and declare themselves independent. South Carolina was well represented. Haywood, Middleton, and Rutledge were already serving in Congress. They were joined by Thomas Lynch, Jr., who traveled to Philadelphia after his father, Thomas Lynch, Sr., suffered a stroke. Over the next several weeks, Thomas Jefferson drafted what would become the Declaration of Independence. Congress debated every word before approving the final text on July 4, 1776. Nearly a month later, on August 2nd, the delegates gathered in Philadelphia to sign the historic document. The sacrifices of South Carolina signers did not end there. Thomas Lynch, Jr. and his wife were lost at sea. During the British siege of Charleston in 1780, Haywood, Middleton, and Rutledge were captured and imprisoned in St. Augustine, Florida. They remained prisoners until they were exchanged in July of 1781. After the war, they returned home to help rebuild both South Carolina and the young nation they had risked everything to create. Rutledge later became governor of South Carolina. Their signatures on the Declaration were more than ink on parchment. They were promises of courage, sacrifice, and an unwavering belief that freedom was worth the cost. And 250 years later, the legacy of South Carolina's four signers continues to remind us that the birth of our nation was shaped by ordinary men who made extraordinary choices. This is WCRS Radio, sharing the voice of 1776, brought to you by WCRS Radio and the Issaquena Chapter, Daughters of the American Revolution. Oh, that's right. We are right back here at WCRS Radio. I am Ann Eller, and we are continuing our morning saga as we explore the news, talk about new TV shows, about cooking, RFK cooking. I think that should be interesting. Eating healthier is always better. I think eating at home is, if you actually cook something. And with all the fruits and vegetables, etc., that we have in our area, particularly at this time, it sure is easy to do. And, you know, this morning, the farmer's market is open, uptown Greenwood. So make sure you check that out. I believe they're open till 12 today and then open on Saturday. Are they still open on Wednesdays? They used to be open on Wednesdays. Anyways, I'll have to check that for sure. But we can get from little stands all across the state, milk, well, not milk, but eggs and vegetables and all this good stuff. And lots of people are growing in their backyards. All right, so now let's move on to another topic. The South Carolina budget. They're still working on it. I don't think they've got it totally done. I mean, they say they have stuff working and this type of stuff, but I don't think it's actually been approved. But what I wanted to talk about this morning is South Carolina's budget process actually broken? No, but is it stressful for every year for them to do a budget? Yes, it does seem like it is stressful for them to do it because every year they don't seem to get it done when they're supposed to. Now, in defense of South Carolina, we do have a budget every year. And that is a good thing. We actually do end up with a budget, even though it may not be on the timeline. So a lot of the pressures are political as lawmakers struggle to reconcile promises of major income and property tax cuts, along with health, education, and infrastructure needs in America's fastest growing state. But one of the things that is affecting our state is, quite often they say, the graying of a state. I prefer to say the vintage people that inhabit the state. There we go. The vintage ones. And so when the legislature adjourned on May 14th without passing the 26-27 budget, we're still able to keep going because we have a continuing resolution that keeps it going until such time as they come up with the budget. So even though they've got a $15 million budget deal that was announced, leaders still hope to push through both chambers sometime this summer, and we're now into August, folks. They're going to try to get a final agreement on almost $400 million in economic development and local infrastructure spending. Instead, a special committee will try to make those numbers add up between now and the end of September. So while teachers' pay and some of the necessities, there's a lot of other projects that were on the books, quote, earmarks, that have not been resolved. So, but the question is it, since every year they struggle with doing this, would it be a good idea to go with a 2-year budget instead of trying to do one every year? Because it does consume a lot of their times. I have mixed feelings about it because just like everything that we do, we always wait to the deadline. So the idea sounds great to go with a 2-year budget, giving one the opportunity to work at it and see how the numbers shape up and everything. But would they be at the same point that they are with doing it yearly by being at the end and not having it done? But I wanted to address one part of the budget, and that is the population is growing. We've got a bigger population. We got a lot of retirees that are moving here. And so that means we have vintage people coming into our state. And it says in this article that is senior citizens expect to outnumber those under 17 by the end of next year. We're not talking about 5 years down the road. We're talking about next year. As a consequence, healthcare and infrastructure costs will continue to drive spending higher, even as the working age share of the population paying into the system falls from 63% to 58% by 2040. That in turn means the state will take in less revenue. I suggest that they go ahead and figure out how to do away with the income tax so that they can figure out how we're going to get more revenue coming into the coffers. However, I also say South Carolina needs to reduce its budget. $15 billion budget. That is huge. What will it be next year? I mean, I think, didn't it increase by what? 3 million or 3 billion, it increased quite a bit. Every year, if they have the money, they spend it. So it says that structural budget concerns don't end with demographics, just as worrisome analysis note in South Carolina's exposure to climate risk, particularly on the coast. Since 1980, the average U.S. number of billion-dollar storms, everything from hurricanes and tornadoes to wildfires and floods, has grown from about 3 per year to almost 25. With that pace accelerating every decade, South Carolina is already among the states feeling these budgetary impacts. So I think this is something that South Carolina is definitely going to have to work on. The very fact that every year for the last 3 or 4 years we've been not having a budget on that 1st of June or 1st of July when the budget is due, they're always working at it. Maybe they're going to need to look at a 2-year program And would that give them the opportunity to budget better? The only way that I see it could make them budget better if it was an ongoing process during that 2 years and not rushed and done at the last minute. Currently, South Carolina is one of 30 states that writes a budget from scratch every year. The other 20, including North Carolina, use a 2-year budgeting cycle, a process that can help lawmakers take a longer view while providing more stability for state agencies. So that's just something I thought I'd bring up and let you kind of mull about. It says writing a $15 billion budget every year is a lot of work for a small number of people. Rex Rice said, we need to do a better job of literally going through the agencies when they make their budget requests, and I think we could do that better with a full budget year. So then they say the devil is in the biennial system, is in the details. Lawmakers would have to remain flexible in year 2 as revenue estimates are updated and expected needs arise. But that's only if you're actually working it over a 2-year system, two-year time frame. If you wait and do it in the second year, you're right back where you started. So these are things that we are dealing with. We're dealing with them because we are growing so fast. And I think the fact that South Carolina is becoming a retirement state, not only a military retirement state, but a regular retirement state. If you were at the Vintage Vixens the other night, you saw there were a lot of people there that were of an age, vintage, that were enjoying the music. And so how else will South Carolina change if we become more of a retirement state and having to deal with more of the needs and the desires of people in retirement? It's an interesting question. I just wanted to bring it up because it's been on my mind, and I think it is something worth having a discussion about. So, are you thinking about this? Are you worried about this? No, not really, Ann. I've got other things to worry about. Absolutely. I know you do. But the budget process, the amount of money that is spent, certainly is something that needs to be addressed. Now, talking about that, don't know if you saw the debate last night where there were for the senator's seat that was formerly held by Lindsey Graham. There were 4 on the stage. Darlene Graham was not there. She was in Washington doing her senator duties. I question whether this will be the last the Monday night debate. Will we actually see her anymore or not? It was an interesting debate last night. I gotta say, of the 4 candidates that were there, I actually thought that Mark Sanford was the most prepared. I mean, they all were prepared, but I thought he was the most prepared. One of the things that we do need to address before we talk anymore is Danny Ford is back on the ballot. Early voting does start today, and so they had to reprint the ballots because of Danny Ford being taken out and then putting back in. That actually raises an interesting question on requirements to be running for office. The Republican Party, in fact, I'm going to back up and just talk about this a little bit. The Republican Party has made some rules to be able to run in a primary. And one of those rules is you have to have voted in the last 2 of 3 primaries. You also have to be a resident of the state. I kind of take issue with the fact of them saying that you have to be a resident of the state, not because I think it is wrong. I think because our Constitution says that you do not have to be a resident to run for office. You have to be a resident at the time of the election in order to serve for that office. So that is an interesting distinction, and that is according to the Constitution, and that has to do with running for federal offices. I don't believe it has to do with state offices, but it does have to do with federal offices. So your office of your congressional office and your senator's office. Danny Ford had run as a candidate in the primary for Ag Secretary, and then decided to run for Lindsey Graham's seat. He was booted off because ostensibly he had not voted in the last 2 of 3 primary votes. Well, yesterday, a judge said, no, put him back on the ballot. So, he's back on the ballot. That means that absentee ballots that had been shipped overseas did not have his name on the ballot. I'm amazed at how fast they're actually able to print these things and do things. Anyways, they did not have his name on the ballot there. I'm considering what the effect of that will be, but they said that is not going to be the major issue. They did say that it had to be put back on. So if you early vote today, or today through Friday, you are supposed to. I'll put it this way. You are supposed to see Danny Ford's name on the ballot. So that would mean 10 candidates to choose from. What do you think about the fact of the Republican Party being able to take somebody on or off based on the rules when it really goes against the Constitution? For federal offices. Now, I'm just talking about the federal offices. I'm not talking about statewide offices. I think that's something the Republican Party is going to have to look at. But the debate last night, as I started to say earlier, I did think that Mark Sanford, a lot of people are not going to vote for Mark Sanford because of his going on the Appalachian Trail when he was really down in Brazil. I mean, we all know this story. As maybe you heard if you listened to my show the other day, I had a interview with him, and he said that he went on a big apology tour. He can't believe he did that. He also made reference to the team that loses always watches the next day game reels more intently than the team that won. So he said it was a very humbling experience for him. I'm sure it was. I am surprised that he is still a survivor out there. But he has some very interesting points on how our economy, with deficit spending and all this kind of stuff, where it's headed. That is one issue on it. Probably the person that is out front at this moment is Darlene Graham. There are people that feel that this is not right. I don't think anybody had a problem with her filling the office for the unexpired term. Of course, somebody always has. Did you have a problem with it? I don't think Penny had a problem with it either. I do think that the majority of the people are okay. That's a pretty standard procedure. There are people that are upset that she is running for the office. But at this point, she is ahead in the polls. She did a respectable job on the debate stage the Monday night. As I said, she was not there Tuesday night. We'll see where it goes with her. Ralph Norman is another one that is very much up in the polls, as is Russell Fry. All of them had good answers. Personal opinion, I thought Mark Sanford was the sharpest knife in the drawer. There you go. How about that? The sharpest knife in the drawer. So you should check out the debate and get back to me and let me know what you think. Early voting does start today. It is at the Event Center, right there, 115 Hampton Plaza. It is right behind Eggs Up Grill. That's where early voting is. It is until 5 or 5:30. I don't remember, but that is when they have that. So if you want to early vote, you can early vote today, tomorrow, and Friday. Wednesday through Friday. No voting over the weekend. No voting on Monday. And then the primary is on Tuesday, and that will be at all different precincts. A lot of them have changed because most of them were in the schools, so you will have to check that out. So that's all about early voting. That's, and I think it's a very short time to make a decision. I don't believe anybody is going to get 50%. So I can safely, I think, say that we are looking at a situation where we will have a runoff, which the runoff election will be on August 25th. So we'll see who the runoff candidates are. Love to know who you're thinking. Who are you thinking would be the candidate you could support? Which candidate, if you have made a choice, where you would like to be on this? So you can do that on Facebook Live at WCRS Radio, or you can do it on 864-332-9355. You can also email me at wcrsinfo@gmail.com. So check that out. All right. What else have we got here this morning, Ann? What time is it? No, we're almost out of time. So let's move along and see what else we've got. Penny doesn't have a news story here this morning. She was hoping to get a piece of the coffee cake, but since we did not eat it, we will not worry about it. But now I want to go back, and also coming up this afternoon, I do want to remind you, Superintendent Daniel Crockett will be here along with Christy Hodge. We're going to be talking about District 51, Ware Shoals, some of the great strides they're making in their community, in their schools up there. We'll learn how the $1 Million Band got their $1 Million Band title. It's a great story, and also about the trip that they are planning to make to Pearl Harbor. So it's going to be a good show this afternoon. Hope you're going to be able to join us this afternoon. I do hope you do go back and listen and or watch TJ Shadone and Ann Eller's interview on Meet Me at the Diner yesterday afternoon. So that's another one. So now, as we finish up here, let me head right over here and see if I can find what you all said to my question here this morning. And the question was about if we need a new internet. What would you put in a new internet if you could redesign it? If you could change it, make it something different. What would you keep? What would you get rid of? And I'm going to share some of these comments now for you right here. So let's see. One person, Helen, said, I remember when it was called the Information Highway. Said it was her husband, who worked as a military contracting for 10 years in the 80s, said it was originally designed to facilitate communications in the military in case of a nuclear attack. Then it was offered to the public as a research tool. Then it went commercial. I would allow information for research purposes and emergency communications as used after Hurricane Helene, but no commerce, social media, or chat rooms. Oh my God, that's kind of restrictive here. She says that's how we went off the rails. It allowed cyber stalking, echo chambers where dangerous ideology grew, and cyberbullying. Commercial access for gaming and gambling allowed and encouraged addiction. Access to pornography, drugs, Well, what happened to a little freedom of ability to choose here? But anyways, that's her opinion. She goes, in my opinion, and I said it in the 90s, no one needs immediate access to everything and everyone. Well, that's kind of true. Don't you ever feel guilty if you you've got your cell phone with you and you don't take that telephone call, or you get a text and you go, oh, I'll answer it later. I know you do, but I think that would be very, very restrictive. And can you put the genie back in the bottle? That is the question. Can you put the genie back in the bottle even if you wanted to? All right. Another person said, first, the ads. Get rid of the ads. Get rid of the ads. That is one of the things. The ads, if you look at every time I go to look at something, I have to question, do I want my feed inundated with whatever the item I looked at from then on? Until I either buy it, block it, or do whatever. But it is such a phenomena, and it's become so advanced, they can target you from every angle. Another person said, make bots illegal. That's an interesting point. And then this one. Jay said, interesting thought. I don't think it would be any better because any new internet would try to be more restrictive, and as bad as it gets sometimes, the freedom we have is more valuable. Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? We have to balance freedom and our right to know and transparency with all the other ugly sides of things. Things certainly can get ugly out there. The rumor mill, you no longer can just question the written word. I think that's one of the saddest things. You'd like to be able to read something and say, okay, I didn't know that. Or, that's how that worked. But then you have to look at the sources. It's exhausting because I get exhaustipated just trying to figure it all out. But would you really have it any other way? I agree about the ads, and a lot of these things would be nice to not have them on there. I think, it would be cool if you could have level 1, 2, and 3, and you could pick which level that you want, kind of like you can for kids. Maybe we need an adult, kid-friendly version of the internet. How about that? Where it filters out some of these things. Anyways, I don't know what the answer is, but would you have another one? Still love to hear from you. It's on my feed. Ann Eller, if you want to check out and comment. And, of course, you can always comment right here live on Facebook. So with that being said, I hope you tune in this afternoon right here on WCRS. We will be back at 5 o'clock. And okay, somebody just told me Ford is on the early ballot. That is I think that's amazing that he is on the early, that they were able to turn it around that quick. It was yesterday was Tuesday. Okay, they had a hearing on Monday, and Tuesday the decision was announced, and today it is on the early voting ballot. So somebody just sent me a message. So thank you very much for letting me know it really is on the ballot. But isn't that amazing how fast? And I guess that they are printing those. Are they printing those locally? I don't know, because I know I saw a message from Connie Moody that they were waiting to see whether Danny Ford was going to be on the ballot. So I don't know how they have to print them or whether they just download them. But regardless, it is an amazing feat that they can do. And part of that, because of the internet, folks, because of our ability to do this. Anyways, I hope you will join us this afternoon when Daniel Crockett will be joining us. He is superintendent of schools, and Christy Hodge, the band director of the $1 Million Band. You may be interested to know how the $1 Million Band got its name. And we will disclose that this afternoon on the show, along with a lot of other interesting facts about what is happening up there in Ware Shoals in the school district. I hope you have a great day. We didn't even do the weather, I don't think. I think I jumped right in and said, hello, world. So let's check the weather, see what the weather's supposed to be for today. Checking the weather right now. It is 76 degrees and feels like 76. We are headed to a high of 87. Rain, we're not supposed to have that much rain, a 22% chance of rain. Cloudy skies, a stray shower or thunderstorm is possible. So that's what we're looking for there. Tonight. Scattered thunderstorms during the evening, partly cloudy skies after midnight, low of 71. Chance of rain is 60%. Coming in on Thursday, we're going to have a high of 87, low of 70, a little more chance of showers, about a 40% of some showers. Friday is a high of 88, low of 71, and shower range is in the 50%. Saturday, high of 90, low of 72, dropping down to about a 20% chance of showers, and pretty much a ditto day on Sunday. So that's what we're looking for as your weather forecast shapes up for the rest of the week. I hope you have a great day. I hope you find some peace out there. I hope you find a habit, a bad habit, and you replace it with a good habit. And if you can't replace it with a good habit, then just find another habit. There you go. I'm Ann Eller right here on WCRS Radio. That's going to do it for us. Penny says it's time to eat. This is WCRS Radio, so we're going to drop the curtain. See you this afternoon, 5 o'clock. Hope you'll join us. Take it away. Take it away. There she goes. Cue the music. Bye-bye, everybody.